Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Money Hungry Mama. I am so excited to have the one and only Vicky Weber here today. Vicky, take it away.
Well, hi. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I guess what hats don't I wear? Basically, if it's something related to the publishing industry or writing, publishing, I've probably either done it or tried it or had a hand in it. I am a literary agent. I'm also an author as well as a publishing coach. I am a mom of two toddlers. So to say I keep busy is an understatement.
And literally right before she got on, she was like, I just finished up a piano lesson. So she's also still tutoring music, which is incredible. Oh my gosh. Okay, Vicky, so you started your career as a music and STEAM teacher. So what made you say, okay, I'm going to write books now?
So, a lot of things. I always wanted to write children's books, but I never thought it was something that I could actually do. And my husband is like the king of just like, get out there and do it. You have a hobby, you have something you want to try, just do the thing. So one day we were sitting on the couch and he says, "What's one thing you've always wanted to do that you've never done?" And I did not hesitate. I was like, "Well, I've always wanted to write children's books." And he said, "So why don't you?" And I was like, "Well, because that's not a thing you can do." And he said, "Well, why not?" And I didn't have a good answer for him, and so now here we are today.
Oh my gosh. And you didn't just take, oh, I'm going to write children's book. You literally were like, I'm going to do every single thing that comes to publishing possible. And that's going to be what I do. So let's start with your children's books. Okay. You incorporate music, culture, and emotion in such beautiful ways. So, what is your process for turning an educational into a kid approved story?
So, when I was in the classroom, well, actually, back up. When I was a kid, I loved reading so much that my mom used to ground me from reading. Granted, I deserved it. I would be like reading instead of listening to her, or like reading instead of doing my homework, or instead of doing my chores, or whatever I was supposed to be doing. I wasn't doing it. She hates when I tell that story because she's like, "You make me sound like a bad mom." And I'm like, "But I say that I deserved it. It's fine." I loved reading. I was obsessed with books, always have been. And so when I got to the classroom on the teaching side of things, I very quickly learned that most kids were not like me, not at all. And I saw so much opportunity for them to fall in love with reading if they just found the right books. And so that's kind of where a lot of my specific ideas started for music education things because I had so many students in my classroom who loved music and loved creating, but didn't love reading. And I thought there's no reason that these two things can't or shouldn't be able to come together. So I tried to think about, okay, well, what are the books that they love and how can I twist that and make it musical, make it fun, make it fresh. So a lot of brainstorming, but just a lot of thinking about what do kids like, why do they like it, and where is there a gap in the marketplace?
Love it. Yeah. I think most of us that go into children's book writing, we just have something on our heart that we want to help kids be able to do. It could be help them reading like Vicky or, emotional learning or manners or anything. So I think it's really cool to see and talk to all the different kind of authors that are like, "Oh, I started because of this." And it always kind of stems into something that's like a personal experience that we want to help and emulate for the future. So that's really cute. What is your best selling book?
Well, I've got two that are pretty tied. Rhythm Rescue and When Step Met Skip sell pretty similarly. They are both interactive music education books. So Rhythm Rescue, you have to clap the right rhythm to keep the story going, which is a lot of fun. It's like Don't Push the Button meets music education. And When Step Met Skip takes the concept of steps and skips on the musical staff and turns them into characters with personality. And that was a really fun one to create because everything in the actual book is played on a piano, which was tricky to do with the art. So I was very lucky that my illustrator was a musician and knew what crazy things I was talking about. But even if you don't know music, it's just a fun read with some really polarizing, enjoyable characters. So those two are definitely my top sellers right now.
What has been the hardest part of marketing your children's book?
I would say the hardest part was getting started because so much of marketing, business owners, authors, like anybody starting out doing their own thing. It's easy to see marketing and be like, oh, you just talk about what you do. And yes, that is what you do, but it's not just going out there and shouting into the void or, pestering random people on the street kind of a thing. It's not a used car salesman approach that doesn't work in today's market. It is more about connecting and inspiring and leaning into why you are doing what you're doing and making real authentic connections, and that takes time.
It does.
So I think that that's the hardest part is getting over the mindset shift because that means that marketing is personal and anything that's personal is risky and risky, emotionally risky. That's hard. It's hard to get past that. But once you do, it'll feel so much more genuine and it'll feel like you're finding your people rather than you're trying to be a sleazy salesman.
Love that thought because if you think about marketing now and you think about the TikToks and how everything's 30 seconds, like it's honestly personality that sells. And I think that's something that we truly need to remember that there was a time when a brand stood on its own and you just wanted to buy the product. But now it really does come down to who's behind the brand. And I'm really glad you brought that up because we have not talked about that yet. So that is great. So now we're shifting a little bit. So you started off as a children's book author and then you created At Home Author. Tell us about it.
So, well, you and I, you and I were both kind of in the same position where we really wanted to do the things that we were doing, but we had so many people asking us, well, how do I do this too? And there's a lot of information out there online. Honestly, pretty much anything that you could want to learn about anything is probably out there on the internet. But that doesn't mean that it is like A, easy to find, B, easy to understand or piece together. And so it's kind of like playing 52 card pickup with whatever you find on the internet. And so one of the goals there was okay, there is not a resource out there or a hub, a place where that information is curated by teachers who know how to break things down to be as simple as possible, who just demystify the industry, because that is one thing I do find frustrating about the industry on the whole is that there's a lot of, assumptions about what people know or what they don't know or expectations about where something should be without a lot of detail or information to back that up. And so, it's kind of like entry level job. You can get into whatever industry you want. You just need to learn the stuff. And so I really wanted to be one small part of helping people figure out what the stuff is so they can chase their dreams too.
But, and like for anybody listening, we started as webinars on Thursday nights, and I'll never forget it. And it was so much fun. And it was just like, okay, we're gonna do like a quick little $10 webinar of teaching you how to do this, or a $10 webinar of how to do this. And it was so fun, especially like for two children's book authors who became friends online who have never met in person to sit there and be like, okay, I'm getting asked this question a lot. What are you getting asked? And just like doing these little webinars to just try to help people. It was such an inspiring, fun time. So thanks for letting me be a part of that. That was really fun. So now At Home Author has helped so many teachers, moms turn ideas into incomes. What were the first few months like?
With At Home Author,
Yeah.
exhausting.
Yeah.
Exhausting, more exhausting, lots of caffeine. Yeah, I think, a lot of it was trial and error and late nights trying to figure out all of the things because in that instance, I was trying to learn even more about the industry while also trying to learn how to run a business
Mhm.
in the middle of COVID, I think. Or no, it was shortly after.
Yeah.
I think it was 2021. January 2021. But the prep work leading up to that, came into place. So there was COVID, and we both had babies in April uh, of 2021. So it was just a lot of learning and time and effort and growing and doing all of the things. And I wouldn't trade that for the world, but looking back now, there's lots of things that I would do differently or lots of things that I would prioritize a little bit differently.
I feel like, for anybody listening, like when you're just starting a business, obviously when you're, 4 years down the line, you could look back and be like, yeah, I should have did this differently. I should have prioritized it differently. But being in the trenches with you when you were started. You just always, and I'll say this from the beginning, you've always had such a fire of wanting to do this and making this work that it was just like our conversations of, trying to figure out what to do next. You were just always so taking all the courses. And, I do talk about taking other people's courses, and I do believe that there's smoke and mirrors in a lot of courses. But Vicky, she tried a ton of them, and, there was great ones and then there was pretty bad ones. So just really do your research. And I think there's more than enough research now, especially like on Reddit. I'll go and I'll search and see what people are saying. But, if you are sitting here and you're like, I have something that I want to teach somebody else, do it, because there's going to be so many people that you're going to help. And with that, what is your favorite author story of somebody that you've helped since starting At Home Author?
Man. I don't know, there's so many. No, seriously, there's so many. I'm like, I don't wanna pick one. Okay, well, here, let me derail your question just a little bit because I wanna add on to what you were just saying, because this is true for writers with manuscripts, this is true for people with businesses, this is true for, I feel like, pretty much anybody, but I
Mhm,
don't feel like it's said enough. If you are putting yourself out there, period, in the world, you are going to get opinions. You are going to get feedback. It is unavoidable. It is going to happen. And so, what you need to do is get yourself in a position where you know what your vision is for your story, for your business, whatever you're doing. What is your vision? Because then, when you get feedback, you can look at that feedback and say, does this bring me closer to my vision or farther from it? Because sometimes the answer will be farther from it. And that will make it easier to ignore and let things roll off your back that, just aren't for you. Does that make it easy? Absolutely not.
yeah,
But you have to think of it from a perspective of, is this just somebody's opinion?
mhm,
Because if you end up turning into a yes man and just listening to anybody and everybody that you encounter, you are going to end up writing somebody else's story instead of yours,
mhm,
building somebody else's business instead of yours, living somebody else's dreams instead of yours.
mhm,
And so you have to hold your ground. And sometimes that means finding the support systems, or the things that you need in order to be able to do that. Not everybody can just do that on their own. Sometimes you do need other moms, other people, other writers, other, entrepreneurs, whatever it may be, to back you up, or snap you out of something.
mhm.
That happens. But I think most of my favorite success stories with At Home Author are the people who have really walked away knowing with confidence what they're trying to achieve, and essentially not needing me anymore.
Yeah, that means you did your job. Yeah, it means that they're like, you know, as a coach, it's, you want to coach them, but you want to coach them enough where they're able to do it on their own, which I think is great. And I love that that's your end goal. So now you have this thriving business, At Home Author. You have your books that are doing so well. At what point, you have 2 kids, you have 2 toddlers, where you like, okay, I am going to leave my stable teaching job and just go all in on this. What Talk us through your mentality of that, because I think there's so many moms sitting here teetering if they should do this or not.
So I left the classroom. Okay, so I had my firstborn in April 2021, same day as Brittany. Fun fact, that was
Yeah.
not on purpose. That was not planned, friends. And so I went on maternity leave. I had just been teaching online throughout the pandemic. My very first pregnancy this was, and none of that turned out the way I expected it to be. And so I reached a point where maybe a month or 2 after giving birth to my daughter, I was still on maternity leave, and I started getting the emails for, like, when I would go back
Mhm.
to teaching, and that was when I had this huge ball of anxiety hit me like a semi truck. I was just like, "How am I going to do this? How am I going to be a teacher and be the mom that I wanna be?
Mhm.
How am I going to come home at the end of the day and still have the patience that
Mhm.
she deserves?" And, the energy to do the things that I wanted to do and be the mom I wanted to be. And I realized that those two things couldn't, for me, exist simultaneously. And so I, at that point, was only a children's book author. That was before I became a literary agent. We had just started at home author, and it wasn't making ends meet. And so I didn't have money rolling in where it was
Mhm.
just, oh, this is an easy decision. It was a very hard decision. And I remember crying for days. And my husband kept saying, I think you already know the answer. You just don't want to admit the answer to yourself. And I'm like, stop making sense. Let me be emotional for a second. And then he would like, laugh and waddle off. And I was like, "Oh, he's right. He's right. He's right." So I ended up I asked if I could take a year leave of absence. And the answer came back no.
Mhm.
So initially, I was like, can I just temporarily take some time away and reevaluate? The answer ended up being no from the school. So I had to decide, do I actually leave or do I stay? And I chose to leave. And I still remember my husband had to take my phone from me because I almost called my principal to take it back about an
Yeah.
hour after. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because later that month, because I had invested 100% of my time into my writing and marketing and all of the things that I was doing, I saw the results very
Mhm.
quickly. That won't be the case for everybody. It was a huge risk for me to do what I did, and especially in today's market. It's definitely a leap of faith, but I firmly believe that dreams are meant to be chased
Mhm.
and that there's more than one path to success. So don't try to force somebody else's process on yourself. Don't try to follow somebody else's journey. You have your own, and sometimes it'll look similar to someone else's, and other times it'll be a big old squiggly line, and that's okay too.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, that, like, you took the leap of faith, but that's your story and it worked out really well. And I just want to reiterate this, that she didn't take a leap of faith and hope. Like, I have known Vicky. I watched her through all of these processes. I've helped her with all these processes. She is one of the hardest working people that I know. So when she quit, when I tell you she went full force, it would be 2 a.m. and we're both feeding the babies. And she's like, I think I'm going to try this for marketing. And I'm like, I can't think right now, Vicky. I am so tired. So, like, I just really wanna reiterate that because it's not just a leap of faith and you're hoping. Yes, we're gonna hope and we're gonna pray and we're gonna do all those things, but at the same exact time, you have to put in the effort too. So, I just wanna make that very, very clear because I never want this podcast to be like, Brittany and Vicky said I should take this leap of faith and it's gonna happen. It could absolutely happen, but you have to put in the work. Like, I don't believe you don't put in work. I think you have to put in the work.
Love the phrase. There's a quote, and I can't remember who it's by, but if you want something you've never had, you have to do something you've
Yes.
never done.
Yes. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's so true, and it's just like, it's so possible. I always think like, why can't it be you? Why can't it be you that's getting rich? Why can't it be me that's getting rich? Why can't it be the person that's here listening to start the business getting rich? It absolutely can be everybody, but it does take work. It's not just gonna hope for it and it's gonna be laid out in front of you. You do gotta put in the work for it. So I just want everybody to listen to that because, I mean, she has become really well known, very successful. She's done all the things, but if you're listening, she wears a lot of hats. Okay, so she does do a lot of the things and she puts a lot of effort into these things. So whatever it is that you want to dream, that you want to chase, go for it. We're here for you. We want you to do it. Just know that you're going to be tying up those laces and you're going to run after it. So love that. Now, we have children's books. We haven't been following along. She does children's books. She has at-home author. And now she is a literary agent. So tell us how that got started.
Fell into that on accident. So essentially, at that point, I was knee deep, mostly in the self publishing side of the industry. I dabbled a little bit in the traditional side. And then one day, just by pure coincidence, met the owner of an agency who happened to live in my town.
Mm.
And they were looking for somebody with expertise in the children's publishing industry, which I had tons of expertise in. And so she took a chance on me. I applied for the job. She ended up taking me on. And so I head up like the kidlit department there. I was there for about a year and a half before I moved to creative media agency. And so now I had the kidlit, uh, especially kidlit audio and educational licensing, things like that, over at CMA. So I've now been agenting 3 years, and I have 25 clients. So I found that being a literary agent tied really naturally into all of the things that I was already doing,
Mhm.
because essentially what it is me marketing unpublished children's books. I do represent adult fiction as well, but unpublished books to publishers and
Mhm.
convince them, "Hey, you wanna buy this. Hey, you wanna publish this, and here's why." And so much of what I had done with my own stuff was learning to market, and I found I like it and I'm good at it. That translated very naturally over into being a literary agent. All of my contracts work as a self-published author translated very nicely to being a literary agent. And at-home author allows me to help people at a larger scale because I have a full caseload of clients. For most agents, 20 to 30 authors is a full-time workload. And so that's not a lot of authors.
Mhm.
So continuing to run at home author allows me to continue to help other people that I might not be the best agent representative for them, or I just don't have the capacity to take on. It still helps me help them get publishing deals, help them successfully self-publish, help them find an agent, who's right for them and all of those things.
So I just want to also make it clear too. At home author, I think one of the coolest things about at home author is they also teach you how to find agents. Obviously, Vicky is an agent, so she knows what she's looking for with querying, with not querying. And I think that is the coolest part, especially because there's a lot of authors that I've talked to that are like, oh, I want to get traditionally published. And it's just instinct. I'm like, well, then you should go check out at home author because they have so many videos and tips and tricks because that's different. That completely stands out from all the other publishing help that there possibly is. You literally have an literary agent who is helping you get agented and get on the traditional publishing side. So, Vicky, what is one piece of advice for somebody that's listening right now that wants to get an agent on something that they should never do? Never ever do.
Something they should not do to get an
Mhm.
agent.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, this is an easy one. Don't be a jerk. Oh no! Don't be a jerk. One thing I did not expect or realize when I became a literary agent is how much, like, nasty, like, DMs
Really?
and emails I would get. I get them all the time, on a weekly basis, and it's because when you're writing something and a literary agent passes on it, a lot of people do take that personally, and it's hard not to take things personally. However, when you do get an agent and they put your manuscript in front of publishers, you are still going to hear no. There are still going
Mhm.
to be rejections. And even when you get published, there are going to be readers who leave one-star reviews or who don't like your work. It's always going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, one of the best things that you can do is find the tools that you need to let it roll off your back, let it in, let it out, don't linger on it, and certainly don't let it affect you in a way that could bite you back later. Because my first thought when I get, an email like that or a DM like that is I don't want to work, whoop, bullet dodged, because I don't want to work with this person anyway. Because if they're treating me like this and we're not officially working together, how are they going to treat an editor? And
Mhm.
if they treat an editor poorly, that editor might be like, "I don't wanna work with any of Vicky's clients. I had this horrible experience." And then that affects not just that author, but all of my authors.
Mhm.
So, how you treat people matters, and just as easily, how you approach those things can work in your favor. There have been some authors who I loved their work, but I was not the right person to take them on for whatever reason. And so they walked away from my rejection with referrals, or I've called up other agents and said, "Hey, you need to jump on this person because they're awesome and here's all the reasons why." I have done that. I will continue to do that for the people that, I really want to fight for, and I don't want to fight for you if you're mean to me.
I didn't see that one coming. I didn't think about it like that, that there would be authors. See, guys, this is why I like always, I'm like, just be kind, like just be a good person and things work out because she doesn't have to go and tell other agents that your stuff is great, but she's doing that because it was a good person who reached out to her in the first place. So that's really cool to know. Now, what is the best tip for somebody that does want to query?
So the most common reason I have to pass on a manuscript is because the execution isn't where I would need it to be. So, what used to happen, if you rewound like 5, 10 years ago, you could come in with a draft of a manuscript that's been through, beta readers and critique partners a couple of times and you've like polished it up. That is not strong enough anymore because of volume on the agent side, volume on editor's side. Essentially, editors at publishing houses are doing very, very little developmental work at all anymore. It is mostly
Mhm.
copy editing with light developmental edits.
Interesting.
So, one of the best things that you can do is get your manuscript far more ready than you think it needs to be. Like publication ready, not good concept because there's lots of good concepts. There's lots of good ideas. I cannot tell you how many times somebody's query has come in and I've gone, "Yes, yes, 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 I want to read it." And then I get in there and I go, "This needs so much work. I can't do it." Because I don't make any money until that manuscript sells.
Mhm.
And so if I can already tell it's going to need 4 or 5 rounds of editing, that's 4 or 5 times I have to read a book, and that's gonna take me 8 or 9 hours, before it's ready to go on submission, and
Mhm.
then it could still get passes from there. So I'm looking for people that are a little bit further along. Your manuscript does not need to be perfect by any means, but I used this analogy the other day at a conference. I said, think of me like an interior designer. Okay, you've built your house, and I'm coming in and I'm like, "Ooh, we could stage it like this, or we could stage it like this." The most I'll be able to do is maybe knock out a wall, right? Or something like that. But I can't do anything if your kitchen is on the roof or if
Mm.
you don't have a roof. So think about your story like that. Does the layout make sense for, you know, the
Yep.
audience? Do you have everything? How is the flow? How is the structure? And make sure it's structurally sound because I can work with paint and furniture and decor. I can't work with a kitchen on the roof.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so true too, because I can't imagine how many stories and books you read from like other people, but it makes sense that, especially getting to you, I feel like I guess I always thought that the story should be done, like you should have gotten it basically edited and all these things prior to getting to you. So it's nice to hear that that's not always the case. So if anybody's listening right now that did want to query an agent and did want to get into traditional publishing, try to get as close to perfect as possible. Love it.
Yep. My favorite tip for that is pretend my toddler is standing beside you asking why 100 million times. "Oh, my character's personality why?" "Well, because why? Why?" It doesn't all have to make it on the page, but the deeper you understand your characters, your plot, why they're making what decision, when, why, how, the stronger it'll be.
Oh my gosh. Love that. Yeah. I can attest. I work with Vicky and she's always like, first off, let me just say right off the bat, I'm going to put it out there because it is because of you. I would have given up a long time ago, but she had mentioned before that you want somebody that's in your corner, that's behind you, that's, rooting you on, that's saying you all these things. And I will never forget that my first concept of an interactive children's book, I had told my mentor. My mentor literally looked me in the eye and was like, "This is never going to sell." And so I went straight to Vicky right after crying because she's my friend. And I'm like, "Hey," I was like, "This was terrible. I don't know what to do. I have to start over." And she was like, "Absolutely not." She goes, "We both know you're a teacher. This is great. Put it out there." It is my best selling book. It has sold tens of thousands of copies at this point. It is the one that I do all my author visits with. He actually messaged me after it won Book of the Year in 2020 when it came out. And he was like, "I have never put my foot in my mouth as fast as I did when I saw that." And he was like, "I apologize." And if it wasn't for Vicky, I wouldn't have done it. I would have just called it quits because I had a confidant in the business that was started just like me, that I was confiding in, that I was, really taken to. And I think, every single day, thank you. And also because she's just always believed in me. Like she was always like, send me what you have, send me what you have. And she was like, oh, just send me, send me, send me. And here we are. Money Hungry Mama is getting published in September 2026. And it is because Vicky believed in my vision. And I just can't thank you enough. Oh, what's one piece of publishing or creative business advice you normally charge for, but you're willing to give for free today?
Ooh, okay. You keep asking me good questions, and I wanna answer, like, 100 million things. Okay. Uh, so okay, well, just to go off of what you just said, I think one of the things that is very easy for people to look at me and be like, "Oh, why doesn't rejection phase you, Vicky?"
Yeah.
It does eat at me, but I am the type of person that when someone tells me no, I'm like, "Watch me."
Yeah.
Like, "I don't want this." I'm like, "I don't care. You're not my person anyway. Let me go find my I'm gonna go find my person
She's
so
so good
hard
at
you
it.
won't even know."
She's so good at that.
I'm the same way with people that I work with. When somebody tells one of my authors no, I'm like, "You were gonna regret that, and here's why." And I don't say that in an email, but that's my like attitude towards things. I'm like, if you tell me no, I'm gonna prove you wrong.
Yeah.
Is my kind of persona, and I think one of the best things that you can do for yourself is surround yourself, find the people that will be that for you when you're at your lowest point.
Mhm.
Because there will be days when you can't do that for yourself. You just do not have, enough spoons, or it has just you've really just had a day, a week, a month, whatever it is, and so sometimes you need that to come from an external place. And that will not always be inside your own house.
Mhm.
Sometimes it won't even be your personal friendship. Sometimes it does need to come from somewhere online, or somewhere, someone in a Facebook group or somebody in the publishing community. And that is okay.
Mhm.
It's a little bit different coming from somebody who gets where you're at and who gets why it's hard and how it's hard, rather than just, "You'll get through it, honey,"
Yeah.
without really understanding all of your doubts. So, find your people, don't give up, and keep your vision, at the heart of everything that you do. Keep it like a compass, because you will get there. Even baby steps are steps in the right direction. And just because you can't see the destination yet doesn't mean that you're not going to get there. You just need to keep moving.
100%. And I'm going to drop that there is a Money Hungry Mama Facebook community for anybody that's listening that's not just in publishing and isn't all those things. That is what that's for, is to be that friendship. Because honestly, if I didn't have Vicky when I first started, I was not surrounded by like-minded people, and it played a part in wanting to give up and wanting to not be an entrepreneur. Like, how crazy could I be to leave teaching, to do, leave such a stable job and do whatever? If I didn't have that anchor who already was doing it, who texted me, "Hey, I'm quitting my job," I'd be like, I remember I was like, "Wait, what? What do you mean you're quitting? Why are you doing that?" And she was like, "No, we have to, Brittany. Like, you're gonna see. You need to be with me." And for that whole next year, she would text me every day, "When are you quitting? When are you done?" And I just think being in the room with like-minded people is just going to put you 10 times further than if you stay stuck on your hamster wheel. A hamster wheel can work for so many people, and that's great. I love that for them. But if you're listening to this, you already have a spark that's not on a hamster wheel. And with that, there is community in everywhere that you can go. So just, I love that advice. It means so much because I've been there, I've done that. This is Bernie. When did that come out? 2025 years ago. The Mind Monster came out. And I was ready. That was my second book. I was going to toss the towel and be like, I am done. But I didn't. And I'm so glad. And I owe it like a ton, if not all, to Vicky. So find your people because they exist and they are there, and you could become friends with somebody you've never met in person, and you could be here 5 years later talking on a podcast together. So keep that in mind.
Well, so I just feel like you're one of those people that, like, you have an idea, and then you're like, "Oh, like, let me dip a toe. Let me, like, like, what is the temperature like? Let me, like, think about whatever." And then, like, once you're comfortable, then you're like, "Oh, okay." And you dive into the pool. Meanwhile, I'm like, "Oh, look, shiny," and like falling into the pool over here. And then, like, "Oh, deep end. Why not?" That's totally me.
It's such like it's so true because we've like like literally have been friends for so long now, and every single time I have a new idea, I talked about it to you for like 2 months before I do something, and meanwhile you're like, I just started this thing today, and I'm like, wait a second, what do you mean you started another thing today? And it's just it's
How many times I was like, "Brittany, you have this idea," and, like, I just wanted to shove you in the pool.
I mean, I can't, especially like I think that the only thing that I've ever dove in kind of fast was the podcast. I think I'm gonna give myself that. That was the only thing I was like, okay, Vicky said that this was a rejection and this is what they said. Now I gotta dive in the pool. And so that's why the
That's
podcast
true.
started.
That is true. No, no, you channeled your inner Vicky with that
Yeah.
one because they said, "Oh, she doesn't have a voice in this space," and you were like, "Watch me.
I'm diving into that pool.
You will rue the day."
True. I can't.
True.
So what does being a money hungry mama mean to you?
To me, I think it just means, a lot of things. I think it means being a mom who doesn't set aside her dreams and who can provide for her family in a way that, might not be conventional and that's okay. But one of the best things about the work that I do is when my kids are sick, okay, they're home with me, and I'm able to make that work super easily. Or, just the other day, my mother-in-law's, "Hey, do you want to go to Six Flags with us? We want to take a day to do that." Cool. Those are things that I have so much more flexibility than I would be able to have if I was still stuck on a hamster wheel. I am doing things that I want to do because I'm passionate about them and I want to model that for my children. I want to show them that there is more than one way to earn a living, to live your life, and that it's all about the choices that you make. And there are a lot of choices out there. There's a lot of options, a lot of career paths that, weren't talked about and still aren't talked about enough. And so to me, it's just being myself and letting my kids see that and supporting my family and in turn having them support me back.
I love it. I always love that question. I just love hearing everybody's answers. And finally, if a mom listening to this has a story in her heart and zero clue where to begin, what would you tell her?
Start. And I know I talked earlier about how, you are going to have your own path. That goes for anything that you do. If you've got a story in your heart and you want to get it out there, write it down. It does not matter if you write it down on paper. It does not matter if you type it up on a computer. It doesn't matter if you put it in a voice note or a note on your phone in between pickup lanes. It does not matter how you write. It just matters that you write.
Mhm.
So don't hold yourself to somebody else's standard of what is or is not. Don't force somebody else's writing process on you if it doesn't work. Try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, try something new until it clicks. And know that things are always changing and evolving. I used to be able to just sit down at my laptop and write like a fiend. I can't do that anymore. Too many toddlers. So a lot of my writing happens on my phone now or my tablet or with talk to text or all kinds of other things in snippets throughout my day. And that is okay. But the important part is that you get moving.
I love that. I love that. I personally have been trying to do one sentence a night. Like, even if I'm laying in bed and I put the kids to bed, just one sentence a night because, like she said, it's baby steps, baby steps. And now I have deadlines. Didn't have those before. So now it's like, okay, like every single night, just one sentence will get you forward. And instead of sitting there for hours at a time, by the end of the week, at least I know I have like 2 paragraphs and I'm doing good. Love it.
One day at a time, one step at a time.
Amazing. Vicky, thank you so much for being here today. How can our listeners support you?
Ooh, well, if you Google my name, you can find me most places, but I am easy to find on the At Home Author website. It's just athomeauthor.com, or you can find me on social media at Vicky Weber Books on pretty much every social media platform at this point.
Love it. Vicky, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.